to start. We are ready to start due to some technical difficulties. But we're ready. I'm so excited for tonight. I have two wonderful speakers. The first one I had the pleasure of working with on the state board for North Carolina during our community college years. Her name is Miss Kirsten Stovall. She is a first generation college student. She attended Randolph Community College, where she got her associate's degree in arts. After that, and during her time at Randolph Community College, she was the SGA vice president, and she served as the North Carolina Comprehensive Community College Student Government Association president. After that, she attended North Carolina State University, graduated cum laude. Go ahead, girl, cum laude, okay. Earning a bachelor's of arts in political science. Recently, she obtained her master's of arts in applied arts and science and post-bachelorette certificate in nonprofit management from the University of North Carolina, Greensboro. Since graduation, she has went back to Randolph Community College and working under their foundation. During her time off, she enjoys going to the beach, watching Hulu and reading. Okay, you still enjoy reading. So I'm going to turn it over to her. I'm going to make her the host. And I introduce to some Miss Kirsten Stovall.
Perfect. Thank you, Charles, for that introduction. Let me get my slides pulled up here. All right, perfect. So tonight what I want to talk about is student involvement. Like Charles said, I'm Kirsten Stovall. I went to Randolph Community College and now work there, which is awesome. I love doing that. And I actually co-advise their Student Government Association there. So I'm super excited to talk to you all tonight about student involvement. So when we think about student involvement, what is that? What does that mean? And so in 1999, a man named Alexander Austin, he developed what is called the theory of involvement. And so what this means is that it's the amount of physical and sociological energy that a student devotes to their academic experience. So a lot of times when we think of student involvement, we think of clubs and activities, we think of, you know, fall fling, spring fling, things like that, but it's actually so much more. And he actually had 5 principles that went with his theory of involvement. And so that is the first one, that it's not just physical, but also psychological as well. Another one is that involvement varies from student to student. We know that introverts, they need that time to kind of recharge, whereas extroverts get their energy from others. So maybe if you're an introvert, one activity is what you can handle. But if you're an extrovert, you might do 2 or 3 things, and that's completely fine. No one has to be in 5 things. It just depends on the person. Another one of his principles is that involvement can be quantitative, so we can measure it based on how much time and energy you give, but it can also be qualitative. So what did you learn from that experience? Did you build relationships, skills, so things like that. Also, it takes engagement. Not just involvement. There very much is a difference between showing up and showing out. So say you're volunteering to do a trash pickup. Well, it's okay to just show up. That's better than most people, I would say. But if you're not actively picking up the trash or being engaged and present in the moment, there is a little bit of a difference there. So being engaged while also being involved. And then also he says that your academic performance can be directly correlated to your student involvement. And I have a video about that on the next slide. So what are some of the different types of ways students can be involved? That's dedicating time to your studies, spending time on campus. So at RCC, we have a saying, car to class, we call it CC. We don't want students to just get in their car, come to class, and then get back in their car. We want them to stay. We want them to go to the student lounge, go to the library, go to the cafe, do things like that. So being present on campus. participating in student organizations or extracurricular events. So maybe you don't want to be in a student organization, but there's something happening that day on campus and you want to go to that. That's a type of involvement. And then also interacting with faculty members and other students in your class. So through group projects, study groups, go into those office hours. Those are all also very important engagement aspects. Now I have a video. If you can't hear it, it does have subtitles, but I'm hoping you can hear it. There we go.
Why should I hire you? It's a question that every college graduate will have to answer in some way after they graduate. It may not always be asked this way, but it will be implied in every question they're asked at the interview. Why should I hire you? For some students, the question may cause a sense of panic. Many falsely assume that a diploma is all they need to get a great job. They've heard people say, all you need is a college degree. It doesn't really matter what your degree is in. That is false. The truth is a little more complicated. If you use college as an opportunity to grow and develop, you're more likely to become the kind of person that employers want to hire after college. Simply put, your most important project in college is you. So what skills do employers want? The National Association of Colleges and Employers asks them every year. Here is what they found out: verbal communication, teamwork, problem solving, setting priorities, finding and evaluating information, quantitative reasoning skills, computer skills, writing and editing, and influencing others. Now, where can you gain these skills? Stephen F. Austin State University and Campus Labs conducted a national study on this issue called Project CEO, Co-Curricular Experience Outcomes. This study looked at how students develop the skills employers want, and some of the results may surprise you. We asked more than 17,000 students at 40 institutions where they could learn these skills. Without exception, their classes was the most common answer. This makes a lot of sense. Classes are supposed to prepare you for success in life, and every student takes classes. But not every student will participate in a student organization or an internship. We investigated these experiences outside of classes that may contribute. These were internships, on-campus jobs, off-campus jobs, and co-curricular experiences. Co-curricular experiences meaning optional experiences outside of the classroom in which learning can occur, like student organizations, campus publications, student government, fraternities, sororities, intercollegiate or intramural sports, or academic groups and honor society. When we asked which experiences outside the classroom help students to develop employment skills, co-curricular experiences were the most common answer more than half the time. Students developed teamwork, decision-making, obtaining and processing information, problem-solving, verbal communication, planning, organizing, and prioritizing. In 3 skills, internships got the most response: career knowledge, computer proficiency, and writing and editing. In 2 skills, off-campus jobs got the most response: sales and influence, and analyzing quantitative data. To see the impact that co-curricular programs make, let's look at how 3 hypothetical students developed the 6 skills that co-curricular experiences impact most. The first student doesn't participate in co-curricular experiences at all. They just go to class and go back to their room. The second student has been involved on campus for 2 years. They spend at least an hour a week involved on campus. The third student has been a leader on campus for 2 years. They run meetings, they help their organization set goals, and accomplish them. We asked each of them to rate their skills on each of these areas: verbal communication, teamwork, problem solving, setting priorities, finding and evaluating information, and decision making. What does this mean? The more involved students were, the more likely they were to say that they were gaining these skills. This leads us to an interesting question. How involved do you have to be to get the benefits of participation in a co-curricular experience? Let's look at 4 more students. This one is somewhat involved in a single organization. This one is somewhat involved in multiple organizations. This one is very involved in a single organization. And this one is very involved in multiple organizations. We asked them to rate themselves on each of the 6 skills that co-curricular experiences impact the most: verbal communication, teamwork, problem solving, setting priorities, finding and evaluating information, and decision making. So what does this mean? Well, this seems to suggest that what really matters is your level of involvement. The learning benefits of being very involved in one organization are essentially the same as those gained from being somewhat involved in multiple organizations. Students who are very involved in multiple organizations perceive the greatest benefit, much more than students who are only somewhat involved. This also supports the claim that it is the depth of your involvement that matters. A word of caution: although involvement in multiple organizations is beneficial, it's also important for students to find a balance and not overextend themselves. So what can we take away from this? First, we need to help employers understand the benefits of hiring involved students, since they tend to have many of the skills that employers are looking for. Second, internships are great, but not every student can get an internship. But any student can participate in at least one co-curricular experience. Third, students work more hours than ever before, and this presents many challenges, but it may also present opportunities for students to develop career skills from their jobs on and off campus. So if students want a great job after college, they'll need the skills that employers want. Involvement outside of the classroom can be an engaging and fun way to develop these skills.
Okay, so I really hope you could hear that video. I remember last semester I had an instructor who was trying to show a video through Zoom, and she was so excited, and then no one heard a thing. But I do really like that video because it kind of stresses why you should get involved. And I also really like it because it stresses the point that involvement looks very different from student to student. And then it really drives it home with that end, with that caution message. Oops, someone trying to get in. Saying that, you don't want to get bogged down. You want to do what's appropriate for you. So I just really like that video. All right, so again, what are some ways you can get involved? Orientation, a lot of you, especially if you're a college freshman or beyond that, you've probably been to an orientation of some sort. A lot of times there's a welcome week or campus events. This is probably going to look different with COVID, and we're going to talk about that in a few slides, but traditionally those are ways to get involved. Social media or apps are also ways to follow clubs. You can follow sports news, follow a lot of times like the college programs, so political science, business, things like that. There's also Greek life, sporting events, go into the writing center, again, those faculty office hours, tutoring, either you tutoring someone or going to tutoring, either way, internships, study abroad, volunteering, community service. So like I said, it really is a holistic approach. It's not just student activities. It's lots of different things you can do. So I want to kind of tell you about my involvement at State because there was a lot of hits and misses and things like that. But the girls or ladies in these photos were my college roommates. So I actually met them at orientation. We have the same last name initials, so we were put in the same orientation group. And we didn't exchange. We talked and we sat together at lunch, but we didn't exchange contact information then. And then NC State has a whole welcome week full of events. Actually, in that picture where it says welcome to Packapalooza, that's their big thing at the end on Friday or I think Saturday at the end of the first week of class. And it's like a big fair. Like they shut down Hillsborough Street and all the clubs have tables and things like that. It's really neat. But also during welcome week, they had a transfer workshop for students who had transferred to NC State. And the only reason I went, to be honest, is because they had pizza and a free t-shirt. Well, it just so happened that Claire and Jordan, the ladies in these photos, also transferred to NC State. And so we reconnected at that transfer workshop. So like I said, I went for the free pizza and t-shirts, but I left with lifelong friends. And then there's another picture of us at a football game. A lot of times you will get discounted tickets or free tickets. So I definitely encourage everyone to take advantage of that if your school offers that. I like to say try everything at least once, even if it's not for you. So for example, sometimes I struggle with telling people this story because no one likes to be rejected, but I had rushed a sorority at NC State and I was so excited and I didn't get in a sorority, but I still make friends throughout the process that I talk to. I have those connections on social media, on LinkedIn, things like that. So even if it's something that when you get into it, you're like, this might not be for me, or you don't get in, you don't fit in, things like that, there's still good that can come from it. So like I said, just even if you're not sure, just take a chance because something good will come out of it. And so I'm giving y'all a lot of NC State examples, and I do apologize for that. I'm just trying to give you real life experiences. I think the next session is a real talk session, so trying to keep it real with you guys. But if you go to NC State's website, they'll have a thing at the top, and it will say how to get involved or campus life, get involved at NC State. NC State, y'all, has 686 clubs, which is insane. When I went 3 years ago for my tour, they only had about 400. So they've grown a lot in the past 3 years. But when you get to that, how to get involved at NC State, it'll bring you up to this, what you're looking at right now, a snapshot of all 686 clubs. And they even have a search filter. So I just typed in dance, and this is what popped up. I also did women to see what clubs they had that were for empowering women, because that's important to me. And I also did a search for religion because that's important to me. And it popped up all the clubs associated with that. So definitely that might vary from campus to campus, depending on if it's big or small or how they have that organized. But definitely I would encourage you to look on your college's website to see how they have ways to get involved. And there might be plenty of other opportunities too, besides just the club. I worked with a girl when I was in Raleigh who worked for the football program, and she did marketing for them through a student opportunity. There was leadership programs, student ambassador programs. I mean, the possibilities are endless. So there probably is something out there for you. And you know what? If there's not, then you can be the change you wish to see. And like I said, that was 286 clubs that have came about in the last 3 years. So you definitely have the power to make something happen. So the elephant in the room with COVID, how can you get involved? You know, we're all kind of staying at home. Things look very different. We're social distancing. I know Packapalooza at State has already been canceled. Who knows what they're going to do with sports. So things are just going to be very different this year, especially at least the first semester. And so I wanted to have some discussion, but it's Charles. So I guess I'll tell you some things that I was thinking about as far as getting involved on campus. And Charles and Justin, if y'all want to jump in, please feel free to, because I wanted to have more of a discussion interaction. But these are some apps, and I have never used Zeme, so I don't know how good that is. I think when I was going into school, they had, I want to say Quad, but I couldn't find it, but it was for people who were going to UNC Charlotte, and that's how people found roommates. They had friends, things like that. So Zeme sounds very similar to that, so that might be a good option. Wildfire, we actually did have this at NC State, and it was very helpful. Especially with the local news aspect. If there was a break-in in an apartment, which never really happened, but anything like that, it would pop up on there, like anything you needed to know. Most of the time it was more like sports updates, and people talking about the football game, but still very helpful to have on your phone. If something were to happen, like I know one time we thought there was a gas leak. It was a false alarm, but that was on the app, which was good to know, to avoid that area where they thought there was a gas leak. Also, some things I had thought about as far as getting involved with COVID, and we have a meeting coming up with our SGA students in a few weeks, so I'm very excited to hear what they have to say as far as getting involved virtually. But maybe having a movie night on the lawn, if you could social distance, that would be a good idea. There's also a lot of virtual workouts. Even if you're a gamer, maybe having a virtual game night, not gaming, I don't know, but I know I have two brothers, so maybe like Call of Duty or stuff like that through the Xbox. So just different stuff like that. I don't know, Charles, Justin, do y'all have any ideas as far as getting involved virtually? I know I'm sure your SGA is talking about different ideas currently.
So definitely for sure. I will definitely say any virtual event that your school have, Get involved in it, no matter how small, how big it is. Because I will say for me, I just went to a small event and that's how I got involved. So however small or large, especially in this day and time, you never know who you're going to connect with virtually, because now you can do things with other institutions because it's virtual. So understand there could be different times where you might have a community college and a university and other institutions come together for a virtual event. So please, please do that during this season. That's what I would say. Justin?
Well, I would say as best you can, going off what Charles said, to join whatever event that you possibly can. But also, if you see that there is an event that you would like, if you see that there is not an event implement, then you should get started on that as well, and working with those who can help you the best they can.
Yes, I agree. Thank you guys for that input. I really appreciate that.
Now, Ms. Stovall, I do got a question though.
Okay, go ahead.
Tell us a story from your time being on the state board.
Giving you a story from my time on the state board?
Yes, please.
Oh gosh.
It was so many, I know.
I know. Gosh, that's just another example of you never know unless you try, honestly. I had never done anything like that. So for those of you who might be watching who are not familiar with what Charles is talking about, in the community college system, they have a statewide student government association, and we have a conference in the fall as well as in the spring. And there's normally 30 to 40 colleges out of the 58 that attend, a couple hundred students, maybe like around 400 to 500 that attend. And I had gotten involved at student government at RCC and went to a conference. And I was like, wow, I really want to be an officer, not just at RCC, but here on the state level too. And so I took a chance and I ran for a position, and thankfully I was voted into office. And then I decided, you know what, after this conference, like I think I want to be president of this organization. And so I went and interviewed for that position and got it. And so it was just honestly so amazing, life-changing. Obviously at the time I was wanting to go to law school, and I had an internship and I decided that wasn't for me. But being involved with the state board and seeing how community colleges got their programs and how leadership decisions were made and how presidents were chosen, that just really, I wanted to do that. And I had also received at RCC a presidential scholarship to go. And so that's what I do at RCC. I work in the foundation, so helping other students get emergency assistance or scholarships or things like that. So that really came full circle for me. We did a lot of cool stuff. We went to conferences. I was able to go to DC. I was able to go to Colorado. And so for those of you that don't know me, I'm from a rural town, like very, very small. So I've never really had opportunities like that before. So it really was life-changing. And not to mention the connections too. For example, I met Charles through that opportunities. And without that, I wouldn't be speaking to you all tonight. So you just never really know what is going to happen. I also met someone on the state board and got an internship through that experience too. So if I had to, I would just reiterate what Charles and Justin said, just take a chance, because you truly never know what is going to happen. The worst thing is you don't like it or you might not succeed. And even if you don't succeed, there's lessons to be learned. Trust me, there was plenty of times as president that I messed up or did something wrong. So it's fine. You learn from it, you move on. And if there's something you don't see, then you make it happen. You be the change you wish to see, like I said. And your college experience is in no one else's hands but your own. So definitely take that into consideration.
I got one more question for you, because
okay.
I'm glad you said something in that, and I thought of a question.
Okay.
So what do you do if you're in a club or in an organization and you have those strong-minded students, you know, like we had, that are intense in meetings and they want motions and their ideas are very strong, and you understand why they're coming up with the idea, but you know it's a far-fetched one and you may not see the results. So what do you tell those students when you have those critical issues and conversations come up?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's something I struggle with on a daily basis because, as Charles knows, I'm very opinionated and I'm very blunt. So sometimes in a team setting, I'm not always the best. I actually, like Charles said, I just graduated from UNCG with my master's not even 2 weeks ago. In the summer, I did a leadership seminar online. And that was one thing. They're like, what do you need to improve? I was like, working with others, number one thing I need to improve. But what I have found in my experience is that people are passionate about something for a reason. So typically trying to sit down with them one on one. And typically there's also, if someone just says no, so say, Charles, you bring an idea to me and I just say no. And I've learned this when I switched to more to the advising role. There's typically a reason why I say no, and I shouldn't just say no. I should say, you know what, Charles, your idea is gonna cost us $10,000, and we only have $5,000. So maybe let's kind of compromise or collaborate to see what we can do with your idea to fit the $5,000. So it really is just about communication. So trying to understand why they're so passionate about their idea or event and why they want it to work, and vice versa. Trying to understand why the other person feels that way or why they're telling you no or yes, etc. So I would just say have open and honest conversation, and just know that you're not going to make everyone happy. That's a very real thing. As Charles knows, we didn't give them steak literally at conference, but we would give them nice meals, and that would always be a complaint that someone didn't like the food or things like that. So just know you're doing the best you can and you're not going to make everyone happy.
Which, by the way, the first time we met each other was after a heated debate. It was after a motion. And so that friendship just clicked. And so she has been in my circle for a long time since that day at conference. I never forget that heated confrontation about that motion of 58 strong.
Yes.
Oh my God. Ooh, that meeting there. So, but I'm going to let you have the floor. I'm going to let you finish your presentation.
No, you're fine. I will let you know things have not changed a bit. Like I said, in the spring, they were getting all up in arms about a game and what the title of the game should be called at the next conference. And I was like, all right, guys, come on, get back to business. So this is kind of one of the last things I have for you guys. Please note I'm a Enneagram type 1, if you know what that is. It's kind of a personality test, or the Myers-Briggs, if you're familiar with that one. I'm an ESTJ. So I very much am a planner. So this is something that I felt would be beneficial for me to kind of track my progress and to track staying involved. So the one on the left, it says setting goals and then my priorities. This is something that I've become very passionate about as the older I've gotten and the more leadership stuff I've done, is really trying to think of a mission statement for yourself. Like, what are you out to achieve? What do you want to do? And tying everything back to that mission statement and your values. And I like that because this worksheet kind of does that. So what are your priorities? And you could even scratch it out and put my values and put your top 5 values, and how are your goals and actions going to relate to those priorities and your values and what you want to achieve in life. And then the other one I really like too, because it's kind of a self-assessment on a monthly basis, but it's 1 month, 3 months, 6 months. I know it's kind of hard to see. And then at the top, it says self-care, relationships, personal development, resources, and professional development. So what do you want to do your first month at college for self-care? Because that's just as important. If your cup is empty, how can you pour into others, you know? Relationships, so making those connections, like me and Charles, how we connected and built our relationship. Personal development, what do you want to do for your personal growth? Resources such as time and money. So maybe you have that idea, and like I said, we only have $5,000 and your idea is going to cost $10,000. Maybe planning a fundraiser or things like that. And then also professional development. So what skills do you want to obtain? Learning, things like that. And you just break those goals down on a monthly basis. So where do you want to be at in 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, etc. So I thought those were really neat ideas, and I really liked those for ways to keep you on track with your involvement and goals. So that is all I have for you guys. Does anyone have any questions? I saw there was some chats. I haven't read those. I don't know if they're questions. No. Perfect. But does anyone have any questions or commentary? I love a good discussion, so feel free to add anything. If you have any advice for the people watching, please feel free to add that.
You know what? I'm about to put somebody on the spot. He didn't know I was going to do this. But Justin, can you explain to us the process of getting your organization started when you got to Livingstone College as a freshman?
So what I did is I simply joined what was a part of what was already there. And then from there, I moved into trying to expand it. So for an example, I'm the president of the pre-theologue program. And we'll talk about that, or Charles will mention that later on. And as a consequence of that, we were able to get in contact with other religious studies majors on campus, as well as now what we're seeking to do is get in contact with young preachers around the nation, and form a larger type of group where we're coming together and we're sharing in dialogue and stuff like that. Also, when it comes down to another group that I'm a part of on campus, Male Champions of Change, which was started by a young man by the name of Cedric, and just joining with him and partnering with him. And with the goal of the group was simply to lead by example in how we dressed and how we conducted ourselves on campus and things of that nature. Then, as it pertains to SGA, I serve now with Charles on the executive board. I have the privilege of serving with him as chaplain. And so as a consequence of that opportunity in SGA, interestingly enough, I also I served as sophomore class president, and then I resigned, and then Charles served as sophomore class president. So having worked with Charles, and forming a connection, and this is where I'm going, we were able to do a lot more with the student body, hands-on with providing an example of leadership. And so that's part of just attacking what was there. One example of me being a part of an organization that was just getting started, our campus ministries, getting started with that, joining on that organization, and then drawing other people as well. I haven't done a Myers-Briggs test, but whatever is the leadership one, I probably have like all of that, I would guess, because what you do when you're joining other organizations is you capitalize on your strengths. And if you know that there are people who share those same strengths that would be beneficial for that organization, you draw them in as best you can so that the organization benefits from everything as well. So that's a little bit of my experience with that. And then, as you talked about also, Ms. Stovall, those profitable partnerships, very critical. If you're not partnering with people, you will not be able to do anything, really. Even if the idea, and I know what Charles is talking about and asking that question, even with far-fetched ideas, if you network, you can forget about it going to anywhere else, right? It won't even touch the student body. So, forming those profitable partnerships is also very critical and crucial. Another thing I wanted to ask you, Ms. Stovall, I was pondering on it because I wanted to see if you hadn't answered it, but you kind of did. But if you could go in depth on how do you handle being on a team with other leaders? Mm-hmm. Is it, and I'm going to add a little more to that, not just with other leaders, but then another part of that is what happens when there's disagreement, right? Mm-hmm. And who, leads in the disagreement, right? How do you navigate through that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's important to differentiate. I like how you said leaders, because if you think about, I actually just told my boss this not too long ago, because I am a newer or younger professional. I've only been working full-time for about a year and a half, and there was a conflict that came up. And I told my boss, I said, wow, this is so much different than a group project, because that's all I had heard throughout my master's project or my master's program was group projects. This is going to help you. Well, I'm the person in the group project who, if no one's doing what they're supposed to be doing, I'm just going to step in and take over. Okay, you can't do that in the workplace. That's not going to rub anyone the right way. So I think it's important that you differentiated leaders, because once you are not working with just a group who has to be there, once you're working with leaders who want to be there, there's definitely going to be a lot more opinions in my experience that I have found. For me personally, taking those personality tests, so the Enneagram is one, and these are all free that you can take, and the Myers-Briggs, it helps me to realize, one, what my personality is, and like you mentioned, it helps me recognize my strengths and my faults as well. And then another one I really like too, now you do have to pay for this one, and it might be, or your organization could pay for it, because I think it might be a one-time user fee. I'm not exactly sure, but the Clifton Strength Finders one, and Charles, I'm pretty sure we did that through SLDP, but it gives you your top 5 strengths. So some of mine are that I'm futuristic, and I don't necessarily consider that a strength, but I have learned to use it as a strength. So like I mentioned earlier, I'm such a planner. So say I have an event for the foundation in 2 weeks. I planned that 2 months ago. So if something happens the week of the event, I'm already onto something 2 months in advance. So it can be a strength because I'm very organized, but if something happens the week of that event that I didn't plan for, I'm all distraught. So I know that I really have to set time during the week of that event so that if something goes wrong, I can fix it. Now, as far as personalities, that's just kind of a case by case basis. I'm trying to think. Charles knows we had someone that was very hard to work with on the state board, and there were several times I had to bite my tongue. But I think, again, just trying to have that open communication, just taking a step back and just saying, you know what, I understand your point of view, and you don't even have to agree. You can agree to disagree. But I think sometimes just taking that step, like, I understand your point of view. Do I agree with it? Not necessarily, but let's move on and let's try to work out a solution. So I know that's not the best answer, but like I said, I know that I'm not good at this myself, because I very much have that mindset to kind of step in and take over, or just, sometimes when there is a conflict, I will just step back completely. I'm either one to step back and become avoidant, or I'll become competitive and I'll try to do the horns, like fight you. So I know that that's not my strongest area. And like I said, I'm working on it by taking those personality tests. There's also conflict resolution models. I figured that out when I took a leadership class at UNCG. There's various methods that you could look at. So say something comes up, it'll give you like an XYZ roadmap to handle that conflict. So I've kind of looked at some of those too. So I would just encourage you to do those personality tests, and like I said, communication. And like I said, I know that's not the best answer, but it's real talk. I'm keeping it real with you guys.
Miss Stovall, I got one more question for you before you get
Okay.
off. So, by the grace of God, we were able to have wonderful advisors. Me being at Rowan Cabarrus Community College with Miss Barb and Miss Shamita and Mr. Rivers and Miss Natasha, and then you with Mr. Shane. I love when you're able to have those type of advisors that are definitely for their students. How much easier is it for you to have those conversations as student leaders with your advisors, especially when it's critical, or sometimes they're heated and they need them to step in and be that middle ground person?
Yeah, I think that is very important. I think that's something I struggle with as I'm transitioning into an advising role. So knowing when to step in and knowing when to just kind of figure it out for yourself, because as you know, that can change your learning outcomes. If someone just steps in, if an advisor steps in and tells you how to solve your problem, then did you learn anything? But I definitely think there comes a point when you've spent 40 minutes talking about emotion and nothing's getting done, that someone has to step in and say something like, y'all, all right, come on, you have to have that parliamentarian, that figurative parliamentarian. So I wouldn't rely on your advisors to step in, but I definitely think if it's a mentor, an advisor, anyone in that position, an SGA president that you could go to and talk to and say, hey, I'm having this problem. Give me some ideas. I do that all the time. Actually, I went to Shane not too long ago when I was having a conflict. I was like, I'm having this conflict and I have no idea what to do, where to start, how to make it better, how to fix it. And he was like, you know what? here's my suggestion, because he has that experience. Did he go through my exact experience? No, but it was better advice than what I had to start with, you know. And I didn't just ask him, I asked Renita, I asked Miss Brooke from Alamance Community College, I asked JJ. So I think having, again, those relationships are just so crucial. Not only while you're in college to make your college experience good, but when you get older and you get a full-time job, to have those real conversations with and advice and someone to talk about your bad days with and celebrate your success with. So yeah, I think your advisor and mentor can be very crucial, but it definitely takes a balance to know when to give, when to take, etc., from both the student and the advisor.
Well, I truly, truly, truly appreciate you so much for doing this, ma'am.
Yes, I'm so excited. I'm trying to get to my next slide because we've been talking about building connections. So I want to give you guys.
Uh-oh. Yes, the connections.
Yes, I think it's frozen. Oh, there we go. But I have my contact on the next slide. All right, well, I might just post it on your Facebook.
Or that will work too, because we definitely want, so I want students to be able to connect with you.
Yes, and please feel free, if you're watching, I can only see my screen, I can't see the Facebook live screen, but if you're watching, please feel free to reach out to me. I spoke at a conference last fall, I believe, and I had some students text me. Even if it's not about this, not about involvement, maybe you're interested in NC State. That's who reached out to me last time, and that's fine. I love the Wolfpack, love State, always willing to talk about it. So if you're watching this and you're like, I might be interested in NC State, let me learn more about that, or let me learn more about biology. It's all about connections. I still have friends there. Like I said, my roommates went there. So I have plenty of people I can ask, even if it wasn't my department. So definitely feel free to reach out to me. Let's see. I'm so sorry. There it goes. So there's my email. I'm also on LinkedIn. Add me to your professional network. I would love that. All right, but I think that's all I have. Now I'm just ready for Justin to kill it.
Let's see here. You might have to make me the host again. All right, y'all, if y'all give us just a few minutes. Y'all, I'm a church boy. I'm a Baptist boy. I'm just going to be real, raised in a Baptist church. We going to go to church Wednesday night. We about to go to church. So get your dancing shoes on, your church dancing shoes. Get your Bibles out, your notebooks out, your iPad, whatever you use for your scripture. Get it out. We're going to get started real shortly with our next speaker. I'm telling y'all, y'all don't want to miss this, because it's about to get sanctified up on this Zoom call.